In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss the issues that plague the underserved and marginalized communities and how we can best inspire and motivate to get these situations handled and under control. Tonight, we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Reneldo Randall. Reneldo is an MBA, is a dynamic and savvy authority on successful leadership and advancing human and intellectual capital. A big picture visionary who understands how daily operations shape results and goals. As a motivated achiever, he is recognized domestically and abroad for combining excellence, integrity, and innovation with the best practices and common sense to achieve immediate and long-term goals. As a higher education administrator, professor, consultant, manager, and social entrepreneur, he is an effective manager of people with unsurpassed interpersonal skills. Renaldo is gifted in uniquely assimilating information and skillfully delivering it with greater value. Reneldo serves as the Director of Advising for the College of Sciences at Old Dominion University and chairs the Pre-Health Advisory Committee. He formerly served as the inaugural chair of the Board of Directors for Black Brand Hampton Roads Black Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Randall is the co-founder, chief executive officer, and chair of the board for Real People Educating Others, REPO, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Reneldo is a former adjunct business professor at Bryant and Stratton College and a graduate of United Way's award-winning Project Inclusion Board Governance Leadership Program. He is the CEO and principal consultant for Bridge Builder and Associates, LLC. He is also the co-author of Friends in Business, the #1 book in the world on family, friends, and familiarity business dynamics, as well as a partner with the Friends in Biz Consulting Group. Additionally, Mr. Randall is a minority business investor and community leader. He is pursuing his PhD in workforce and organizational development at Old Dominion University. Reneldo is married to Dr. Ashley Randall, and they have 3 children, Bree, 26, Ryan, 13, and Reagan, 9. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you all to Mr. Reneldo Randall. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well on what I like to call this pre-Friday.
I know that's right. Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here,
Is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we get the show going?
No, I think the bio was long enough. It's good to hear that stuff. I did do that once upon a time. So that was great, man. I appreciate that.
Well, not a problem. And let's get into the show then. I want to start with your career as an educator. And can you tell us what inspired you to pursue a career in education?
I think that education kind of pursued me. And so, like many young people, I think I was a first generation college student, had an opportunity to go to college, played a little football. But while I was in college, I got involved in extracurriculars, leadership on the non-academic side of things, but didn't know that that was a career path until I got to college, right? That I could work for a university in a non-academic teaching type space. But as I got into that non-academic teaching, non-academic, non-teaching type space, while I was working with students and advising, I learned that I was also good at delivering information and training and development, and so that also paid dividends in the classroom. So I kind of stumbled into it. I always say it chose me, and it kind of really just never left college. Once I graduated college, I just kind of never left the college space, and so I found a lane where I could use a lot of my skills and abilities. And so, like I said, it kind of found me, and I've been of service. I feel like I'm on, like to say, I'm on assignment in university life.
Oh, wow. So how has your role as director of advising at ODU shaped your approach to students?
Yeah, sure. ODU is a large research institution in urban Hampton Roads area, Norfolk, and so we see a lot of large military influence, a large Navy base, Air Force base, and so those are familiar with the area understand exactly what I mean. So just a diverse swath of people from all over the place, and so being a minority man working at this type of institution, being fairly young when I started, still being fairly young, I'm able to be example visually, right? But also I'm able to be a person that they can come to and talk to about things that they may not feel comfortable talking to other people on campus about, right? And so I feel like for some people, I'm their first, what I would call not academic, but intellectual mentor, right? And so those people that were like me, the first generation college students, those people that feel like maybe they don't belong at points, find a kind of safe haven with me. And so that really has helped me to get around campus and do other things and be a part of committees and be pulled on a lot, which I appreciate and I welcome. And so that opportunity to be kind of a small fish in a big pond has worked out great for me, and it's been able to give me the kind of illumination I've needed for the young people to see me, to pull on me, to lean on me. And so those are the kind of things that that my position here at ODU has done for, I feel like, me and my exposure, access to the students, and students also access to me.
So can you tell us, how has the Hampton Roads area influenced some of the skill sets or some of the resources that you use when it comes to teaching your students?
Right. So I think the Hampton Roads area is also just diverse, right? We are probably 5 hours from DC, 8 hours for Georgia. So we're nestled nicely on the East Coast between urban South and rural South as well. But right there, state capital up the road, DC up the road, and then the northern states. And so I think that me being in this area, there's a certain type of, I'm gonna use a very technical word, there's a certain type of swagger that you have. And so I think that that helps, right, for people, because and then you think about the type of people that we get here. We get people from all over the world. Like I live within an hour or 2 hours, there's 7 universities, people from all over the country, institutions like ODU with all the diversity I spoke about. There's 7 of them, right, within a 2-hour drive. Then you have the military influence, right? And so with that type of diversity, that type of melting pot here in the 757, it's kind of helped me adapt to who I am so that I can be like a chameleon when I need to be, right? I can be able to tap in really to my emotional intelligence, and I can work with people from all races, ethnicities, creeds, social economic backgrounds, right? And so that can be tricky. And if you're isolated in a place and you don't have the type of exposure you would like we do in the Hampton Roads area, you might not have that same type of skill set or tools in your tool belt.
Well, I can say it's been a few years since I've been there. That used to be my old stomping grounds, but I definitely am familiar with that area, and I definitely love it. Because you're right, there's so much to do, and it's like there's like beautiful scenery all around. What challenges have you faced as an educator, and how have you overcome them?
As an educator, I think that obviously the generations change. And so I have a slogan, change or die. I didn't, that's not it's my slogan that I use. I didn't create it, but it's just change or die. And so just being able to change and be flexible and pivot. We here at ODU want to be a student ready campus. And so I really took that to heart, right? Because I was a student ready professor and educator before people started talking about that, right? And so each generation, the young people change because of the exposure experiences and what happened to them in their short lifetime for traditional age students. And so just being authentic, I think is important, but also just realizing that each generation is different, being able to identify what the differences are, being able to communicate with them, talk that not get on their level, but be able to speak their language and have them talk to you openly and share their experiences and their thoughts, right? So it helps you to be a better educator because you understand where they're coming from. And so I also lead a lot of student organizations, which also helps me to mentor these young people so I can see them grow and I kind of see where they start, see what makes them tick, why they are who they are when they get here, and then how they change and what it takes to kind of get them to make those positive changes and be grown and groomed while they're at institution. And so I think those are critical, right? Just being authentic, watching what's going on with their generation, being willing to change. Because the important thing is about, instituting knowledge, right? Education. And so not being stuck in rote delivery of information, but giving them what they need, when they need it, how they need it is critical in a fast-paced, changing world like we're living in.
So, can you tell me if you know this? How many of your students, or how many students in your school, are actually representing the underserved and marginalized communities?
Wow. So ODU is a diversity serving institution. So we're a large research institution, but we have a historically black college up the road for us, Norfolk State. Last time I checked, there was a stat out that ODU graduates more minorities than Norfolk State, right? So but keep in mind we are a larger institution, but we graduate more students than the HBCU up the road of that same, right, of background. We also like 30% first generation, 30%, 30 to 33% Pell eligible students, right? And so you kind of see what that is with social economics. And so we have a good bit of individuals that are, like, once again, diversity, but first generation as well, right? And so people that look like me, people that look like the rainbow, right? Look like the rainbow, look like the representation of the whole world. And so,
Right.
it's pretty. ODU was pretty good. I went to an institution where it wasn't so much, right? And so I can really appreciate ODU, what ODU does in this space.
Oh, wow. So, can you share a memorable moment from your time as an adjunct professor?
Yeah, sure. Man, I was adjuncting young. And so memorable moments are always like interesting, right? So they come when I feel like students leave and you don't see them for a long time, and then you run into them long after they were under your tutelage and they're able to share with you something that you imparted in them and that they still use, and maybe it's changed their life. So I think that's really important, right? Because it's the knowledge that you gave them in class that they actually used in life and work, and hopefully they'll teach that to somebody else. So one thing that's happened a couple of times, but one that comes to mind clearly because it happened recently as a student. This wasn't directly related to the class, but a student came to me. I gave them a Excel sheet I use for my bills, right? Because you think students come to college, they don't really understand what it is to adults, right? They just come in, living their best lives. And so I sat down with this student and showed him how to work his bills, right? Like, this is what it looks like to pay bills and how you prioritize it. And I had given him an Excel on a flash drive. He still had the flash drive and he still had the Excel and he was using it, but now he's married. And so I think that was pretty impactful. I was teaching business, but in that capacity, it was more about he opened up, he shared, right? So there's that connection. So I was teaching him the business stuff, but what I taught him about finances, basic finances was going to benefit him far more throughout his life, no matter what he did career wise. And so that one sticks out. But it's usually people that come back and remember something that stuck with them, a mental imprint that that happened when they were in my class or an advisee of mine. So that was pretty powerful. And that's the impact you want to have, right? You want to be able to touch people in that way.
Yes, you do. You do. How do you balance academic advising with your other professional responsibilities?
Balance. How do I balance? I'm a professional juggler, right? There's a visual out there where you don't keep your hand on one thing too long. That's what a juggler does, right? They don't keep their hand on one thing too long. So theoretically it's that, but sometimes one thing requires more of me than another thing, right? And so it's just about prioritizing. Sometimes you have to burn the candle at both ends, and that used to be a popular thing to talk about, right? For people that were entrepreneurs, like, no sleep, just hustle, get it done. That's unhealthy. And so just balancing, having good time management, and everything shifts, right? Everything shifts. So it's a continuous balancing act, but also using technology, leaning on your team, leaning on your partners, right? And making sure that you all have good understandings, I think is critical too. So you want to hire great people and partner with great people and then outwork those people, right? So I think that's a good recipe, right? So hire great people, outwork the people, but also make sure that you're utilizing them when you need to maybe shift some efforts to another space that you're working in.
Okay. So, what strategies do you use to engage students in meaningful discussions about their future?
So I think it happens before the initial discussion. So once again, just building a rapport. I like to talk straight, but out of love. But you have to have the rapport. You have to have a good sense. I usually will tell students, I would say, permission to speak freely, and their antennas automatically perk up. And then whatever I have to say, because of the pre-existing relationship and that one statement, it lands a little bit better. And then after I say whatever it is that I feel like needs to be said, very concisely, then I just let them talk. And then I ask good questions afterwards. A lot of why questions are small things like from negotiation. These are negotiation skills like, right? Because that triggers them to continue talking to tell more. Or I'll repeat the last thing that they just said, which causes them to say more. So it's all about having them talk, because usually they know they have the answer somewhere, right? Or they don't. And they'll get to a point of exhaustion where they've said everything that needs to be said. And they'll realize that they don't have the answer, or they do have the answer. They just need it to be pulled out. So it's that consulting game where you put somebody else's watch on your wrist and you tell them what time it is.
Oh, wow. So, have there ever been moments to where you've had some struggles with some of your students that where you had some that were kind of like just lagging behind the majority of the class, and you had to spend extra time with them?
Yeah, absolutely, all the time. Those are my favorite students because they probably are the millionaires in the room. They're the ones that need the TLC, but it happens all the time. You always have those. I'm just glad that they made it to where they're at. And so somebody got them to me, and it's now incumbent upon me to help get them to the next level. Those that are ready and want to invest in themselves. And that happens all the time. I was that student, I'm sure, at some point. And so somebody invested in me. And so, yeah, I absolutely do that. And they know pretty quickly that I'm willing to. And I find that they actually come to me for that help and support. Where in other classes, it may just be them struggling. They feel more open coming to me for the help and support. I'm able to kind of help and guide them through that.
Okay. How do you incorporate leadership and purpose into your educational philosophy?
It's wow. It is a part of everything that I do. And so it's a part of everything that I relate to them, right? So mindset is critical. Leadership is something that is in each and every one of the students. And I help them understand that. And it's really the nucleus by which they live their life, right? And people view them, right? It's going to be critical for their brand. And so I talk about that a lot for the type of class I teach as well. right? Like your presence, how you present, the consistency. And so we talk about mindset and having a positive mindset and a growth mindset. And so I always talk about it because leadership is kind of my thing. So I talk about it more than most people, but I also hope that I'm demonstrating it, right? Some of my assignments will cause them to tap into their own leadership and focus on what their limiting beliefs might be.
Oh, okay. What advice would you give to aspiring educators who want to make a difference?
Be authentic, come in and be yourself. Work with the least of these, right? So some of the students will come in and have some challenges using strategies that are timely strategies, right? Not afraid to step into what technology has given us to help these students learn and kind of meet them where they're at, right? But also not being afraid to be authentic, but also being open-minded, because there's going to be people that come from places and have done things or do things that you're not familiar with. And so treating each person individual but fairly, and also just remember using all the tools at their disposal.
Wow. So, do you ever find yourself sometimes, having to, maybe go an extra step to help your students to learn the skill of how to critically think? Because I know with a lot of young people today, I haven't seen a lot of critical thinking, and it's almost like they don't know how. Do you
Right.
find yourself in a situation where you're actually teaching them how to do that?
Yeah, all the time, all the time. Every opportunity when speaking with a student and asking questions is an opportunity to get them to think critically. And you're right. There's an absence of students' ability to think critically, and so every time I get an opportunity to do that, I take advantage of it. So if I was a couple of clubs and organizations where I'm able to do that a lot, because I call on them to be creative to solve problems that have just come up, right? Nobody planned for it. And even with the coursework, giving them things to solve real life problems so they have to think critically, right? This isn't something that you read out of a book entirely. This is something you have to create new with the things in your mind, with the things that your team has, right, in their heads, and then some research as well. But it causes you to think critically, and so asking the why question continuously helps them to do that. And people don't do that with them enough, and to cause them to think deeply and a little bit longer than they're used to, because everything now is microwave, right? There's social media, and so everything comes to them quickly. So causing them to think deeply for a little bit longer helps with their critical thinking and retention.
So, how has your educational background influenced your teaching and advising methods?
So my educational background, so I have a computer information systems degree, which helps me understand the analytical stuff and how difficult things can be with some of those quantitative classes. My MBA helps me because I think strategically, and so I help them think strategically. And then of course my degree that I'm completing, my PhD, helps me think strategically, but research, asking deep questions and asking people to prove what they say, right? Show me to prove. I need to see some receipts. And so I think that combination, along with everything I picked up along the way, in entrepreneurship and community work, I think gives me a nice little gumbo for how I deliver and I talk and work with students and help them through the educational process.
What role does education play in addressing social and economic disparities?
I believe education is a great equalizer. And so the more of you have, the better the playing field becomes for you. Also believe, they say knowledge is power, but I feel like knowledge executed, which is wisdom, is the real power. So not only teaching them how to do things, but teaching them how to do things in practice, and giving them the encouragement, really putting the battery in the back to push them out and go do things that they're uncomfortable with, right? I always say you have to be uncomfortable until you become comfortable, right? And so that's how you grow and become stronger in anything. And academics is not excluded.
Okay, so let's transition over to your life in consulting. What led you to become a life, leadership, and business strategist?
So just my career and my heart, I think. So, when you're branding yourself, you got to be careful, right? You can't be everything to everybody. But I really think with my jobs and my passions, it's always about helping people in their life. So whatever they want to do, right? Because
Mhm.
ultimately it boils down to your life. And so helping people navigate their life. And of course, I talked about leadership was my thing. Like everybody lead somebody, and understand what good leadership and what good fellowship looks like and feels like was important. And so those things are critical, and I felt like they need to be a part of my brand. And then the business is something that I know and learned as a part of my trade, but I've worked into. And so those three is where I found, like, if people could master those and understand those, I saw a need there. And so that's where I decided to focus my energies and place my talents.
So, how do you help clients achieve self mastery and communication mastery?
Yes, I focus on self mastery, communication mastery, and well, in this order: self mastery, people mastery, communication mastery. And so I use a several battery of tests or assessments, so they can go through and they can figure out, like, Myers Briggs. Um, there's a slew of them out there, but kind of identify what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, who they work with well, who they may not work with well. Why is that the case? Why? What's their unique value proposition to the marketplace? And so once they understand themselves, then they can start to understand other people around them and how the interplay between them working together, how that looks, and how they can kind of make it productive and even control it. And then once they learn how to master themselves and people, then they can communicate with people better, right? And communication is a lot, right?
Mhm.
Posture, voice, tempo. The least part of communication is what you say out of your mouth, but then you can communicate with people better to get things done in a productive, effective, and efficient way. So when you master yourself, you understand how to master other people and make them their best and work with them, and then you communicate with everyone to get things done efficiently and effectively.
Well, can you share a success story from your consulting work?
Absolutely. Um, wow, there's lots. Okay, so I had recently worked with. This one's going to be a business consulting, right? So it's this stuff is woven into it, but it's a young lady that I work with who wanted to. She didn't necessarily want to start a business. She wanted to strengthen how she was marketing, taking in clients. But we ended up talking a little bit more. She was working for somebody. We ended up going through what it would look like for her to start a business. And she ended up starting the business, something she never intended on doing. But part of it was helping her figure out who she was, the self mastery, building up the confidence, right? She has a counseling service, and then the people mastery, right? She was scared to hire people. She didn't think she would have enough business to do it quick enough. She quickly reached that goal where she was able to get people, master them, get them to um, fall under her so that they could display and present her brand, the type of brand she wanted to present to her clients, and then the communication master. And so then it all came together where they were really disciples of her in a way, right? They were many versions of her. And the communication, the way it looked like to external clients was just beautiful, right? Because everything was in unison, everything had synergy. But first, she had to have her own awakening, right? Which was a self master, understand how she moved, who she worked well with, what are her leadership traits and attributions, and then finding the right type of people to work with that will be willing to be followers long enough to understand her culture and the way she wanted to do business, and then being able to communicate that throughout her company and to her future clients.
So, can I ask you this? With your consulting that you do, are you finding it more that more people are going to entrepreneurship and wanting to get away from the corporate environment and work for themselves?
I'm finding that that's been an interest for a lot of people, particularly over right after COVID. I think a lot of people are wanting to do something for themselves. Some of them in retirement, some of them on the side. So yes, and then but some people don't really know what they're getting themselves into because, of course, they're trading in the 9 to 5 for the 24/7, and they're not quite ready for that.
Yep. Can you tell us what are the key qualities of effective leadership in your opinion?
I think having a strong emotional intelligence. I think that being willing to be vulnerable. Um, I think taking risk is important, like trusting your people,
Mhm.
and then wanting to be transformative, wanting to grow your people. I think is important as well. So I think that those four are probably the top four. Whatever your leadership style is, I feel like you have to have those four in order to be effective. Because good leaders should grow good leaders.
Mhm. Now, one term that that you mentioned in those four qualities that stuck out to me is emotional intelligence. Can you do us a favor, please, and like break emotional intelligence down a little bit more to
Right.
where it kind of like spreads out because it's like it's a whole lot of things.
Yeah, yeah. So, the first of all, emotion. What is it? Intelligence without emotion is not intelligent, right? So I say that in some of it, right? So that's the first thing, right? So if you are intelligent and you think you're a leader, like you're the smartest person in the room, but you're not including emotion, then that's not intelligent, right? So you already don't have emotional intelligence. But it's this idea, EQ, it's idea of getting a temperature of what's happening with your people and what's happening in the room. A good decision, well, excuse me, a good idea at the wrong time is a bad idea, right?
Yes, it is.
Because you have to have enough emotional intelligence to know, is this the right idea? Is this the right time and place and space to mention this idea, right? Right? Are people in the right headspace? Is the company in the right place financially, right? Um, did people have their coffee this morning? Is it too late? Is it too early in the day? Right? What's going
Mhm.
on? Is the fourth quarter? Is this not a good time in the business cycle? When you're thinking about your employees, like, okay, did somebody's dog die? Don't come to them with the to-do list or come to them with something that you need to reprimand them about at a time where they're not going to be able to receive it. Or if something's happening with your employee where there's a declining um, work ethic, but that's not typically who they are, thinking to yourself like, wow, something must be going on with them, except thinking something must be going on with them instead of just approaching them with, hey, I noticed you didn't do this on time or you did this incorrectly. Changing that language and that stance to, hey, everything going on? I noticed that some things have been a little different about you, right? So it's that leading with emotion, understanding what's going on around you, with your people, with your company, um, before you ask for things, before you do things, before you present things. So that's what it is. Just having an awareness of what's going on with company and people, so that you can have a better impact and effect by doing things at the right time.
How do you approach the delicate balance between work and personal life in your coaching?
Um, I just wow. So there's a contract that we have, right? There's a conversation that we have. We talk about, well, what is coaching, what is consulting, what is mentorship, right? That's literally in there. I think I could do a good job of building rapport, but not crossing the line, right? But you do need to build that rapport in order to give good news, to give bad news, to require to enable people to want to be flexible. So you need to incorporate that good spirit and that rapport and that influence, but you also need to know how to draw the lines and some do's and don'ts. And really, it's the emotional intelligence pops up again because you have to get a sense of where is the emotional intelligence of your client, right? So how much laughing and joking can we do? How much off topic talking can we do? And how can I bring it back? And some of that be based on your emotional intelligence to understand and be able to identify where they are in their intelligence emotionally.
Wow. So, so in your everyday life with all the consulting that you do, and with just the many hats that you have to wear, when it comes down to consulting all together, do you take a combination of all the skill sets that you have in order to make sure that your clients are able to take um the actual message that you want them to have? I mean, like when you're actually consulting, do you consult for your people to really be next level or to just stay even keel and you continuously to guide them?
So yeah, I don't want to continuously guide them if I don't have to, right? So that'd be the difference between coaching and consulting.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to know. So people would need to know the difference really there. Excuse me. So the difference between coaching and consulting, because some of it is going to require both, right? If I'm coaching you, I can guide you, but there's a goal we're shooting for. If I'm consulting, I'm there to do a job, and I'm there. It's there's going to be some quantitative measures that we're shooting for, that we're reaching for. They may require some coaching, particularly in mindset, because they may not see it for themselves. But then it's really consulting, and consulting is get you to the next level. We agreed upon this is need your company wants to accomplish. We've quantified it. We're going to reach that goal, right? And I'm going to make it a stretch goal. Coaching still going to make it a stretch goal, but coaching is all about developing the person, right, and getting them. And you may stay with them a while once you figure out what kind of outcomes and outputs you're looking for out of that relationship. So it's a little bit of both, but ultimately you do want to cut the apron strings because you want to teach a person to fish. You don't want to continue to fish for them. And so either way it goes, there's an end date, at least for that project or that agreed upon output.
So do you normally set like an agenda, an outline of some sort that they need to follow, and you explain that to them, or just for everything that you do for just a particular subsection of what they need or what they're asking you for, you just go through it in that manner?
It's more the former, right? Because we're going to break apart the project. Okay, what do we need to do? Let's focus on the things that need to be done first. When I'm with the Black Chamber of Commerce, we have a B Force, which is a business accelerator, and there's certain things you have to have done first before we can move on to other things, right? And so that's one way to guide it. But yeah, so it's much like class, right? We're going to go through some things. We're going to talk through some things. You're going to leave with some assignments. I'm going to leave with some assignments. And we'll come back. We're going to revisit the assignments, and then we're going to work through the plan that way. So yeah, there's definitely a plan of action, but the plan of action is usually discussed up front based on what the client thinks they need, and then my assessment of what they need. And we need to agree upon that, and then we can chart a way forward that makes sense, and we can put some timelines and some deadlines to that.
Okay. So what inspired you to write Friends in Business, and what impact has it had?
So Friends in Business. So my best friend and I do probably 90% of our business together. We were both encouraged separately to write books, and we couldn't figure out what book to write that would be interested people. I would write a leadership book. I don't know what he would write. He would write a networking book maybe, but there's tons of books out there. We just felt like we'd be adding another book to that space, which would have been cool, but it just didn't feel right. And so we started brainstorming about what would make sense for us to do that's not already in the market space that could be our thing. And what we do is we are friends in business, and it's one of those things where people tell you not to do and it's frowned upon, but there's a lot of successful people in industry and enterprise. And so we decided to do a book for that because you're going to have friends in business, right? For those who want to be entrepreneurs, but that's clubs, organizations, sororities, fraternities, all of those things require teamwork, working together. And if those people want your friends to start, they become familiarity partners, right? Because you spend more time with the people you work with. And so those relationships needed to be brokered. And so we created a book for that purpose. And then the results have been great, right? We've had a review. One review that sticks out is a young lady said if she had read that book before her husband started his business, they would have still been married. And so I think that was pretty important. But first, on family, friends, and familiarity partners, because nobody's written about it. And so we had an interesting perspective. We've been doing it for 30 years together. And so we just felt like that made the most sense. And it's always going to be a book that's relevant because somebody's always going to do some type of endeavor with a friend, family member. And if not, somebody they meet at work is going to become like family, and they're going to have to work with them. And so understanding how to broker those relationships while still keeping the friendship is going to be important for everybody's mental health.
Oh, wow. Now, I think that's really interesting because conceptually, were you guys thinking along the lines of just establishing relationships in a networking way, or just what family was just all about and just creating a camaraderie?
I think both, right? I think as we were writing it, and even after we released it, we was like, wow, this fits in a lot of different places, right? Like people just need to know how to work with people that they've formed friendships with. Like you and I could be friends in a company. I become your boss. Now our relationship changes, right? Or we've grown up together. You know me. Excuse me. We grew up together. You know me in one way, but now I've evolved in life, and you can't forget the guy I used to be, and so you don't respect my skill set, and so it's difficult for us to do business now, right? Or you can't forget the one thing I did with my finances, and now you're scared to invest with me, and so all those things need to be looked at if you're interested in doing business with people that you know, love, and trust.
Wow. So that's really I think that's like a little natural thing that happens with I guess family and friends, is because I think when one outgrows the other, I think it kind of like brings about a little rivalry to some extent. Was that one of the things that you guys were thinking about when you wrote this book?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we knew that too. Like we did some surveying to find out why people didn't want to do business with friends, and we mentioned some of that in the book, and we were just able to bypass that stuff. And so we were like, okay, whatever we were doing, let's bottle it up and teach it to other people. Right? There's this rival. How do you get around that? Why is that? Right? My brother is my other self. So why is that? Like you don't want, yeah, like if I was a stranger and you found out the same thing, you would give me more respect than the person that loves you and's been there for you, right? And so this
Right.
is also this idea of that, like when we come into this business partnership, we know that there's more at stake than just the business, and that can be a negative or a positive, but also this person too, right? And so that they should do right by you. Probably the one of yeah one of the probably the toughest pains if that doesn't go right, because not only do you lose a business, you also lose a friend. And so, right, or if we do business with a stranger who is a stranger, you don't know him, you come into a business relationship, and the business breaks up, it breaks up bad or good, but that's it. With the friend or family member, you still have to deal with them in the social circles, family reunions, and such. So yeah, it's a tricky dynamic. It was worth writing about.
So is there a book two coming?
Not sure if it's gonna be on the same topic. There may be like an addendum to book one, but there's certainly more books coming from us, maybe together, but also separately.
How do you tailor your consulting services to meet the unique needs of different clients?
I do just that. I go in and I cater it. So there's certain strategies out there that everybody can tap into, but I want to go in and I want to find out a true needs analysis, right? Because some people think they need a thing, but they don't really know what they need. And so going in and asking those strategic questions to find out what it is that they feel like they need, what's going on. Sometimes that's of the person that brings you in to start, the person that sought you out. But then you start looking at the people that are also stakeholders, right? To get their opinions and perspectives, so you can really figure out, well, what's the issue? And then you can start from what is you've identified as the true issue as the external expert. And then you go from there, you start talking about, is there an ingredient, right? If there isn't, let's talk through why that might be the case, what I see, what you see, and maybe revisit some things. But once we get to an agreement, we start to move forward and start to solve some of those problems that we see, right? And so solving the problems is really what the consultant should be doing, solving the problems and making things work more efficiently and effectively.
Mhm. So, what trends do you see in the consulting industry, and how do you adapt to them?
I feel like there's a lot of consultants out there. And so, just making sure you find your client, right? I tell people there's a lot of different pizza places out there too, but people still buying pizza from Papa John's and Pizza Hut and Domino's and specialty pizzas. And so not to get discouraged by the fact that there's a lot of people in the marketplace. I think there's a lot of people out there there's a lot of access to credentials that are not not true credentials, they're maybe like certificates. And so for people in search of consultants, that it might be tricky to figure out who has the right credentials to really help them out. And so I think identifying business, and then when you identify business, getting those people to understand that you're the expert in the consulting and they're the expert in their industry. And then once again, showing them and getting them to get on board with some of the things that you see, not what they brought you on for, because usually what they're bringing you on for is not the root cause. It's a symptom of what the root cause is. And so them being open to seeing what the root cause is and solving issues at the root.
So would you think, or would you say that a lot of people that are in the consulting industry are basically looking or starting out based on a niche?
For some, but I do think there's some that are generalists. So I'm more of I'm a generalist, but as you can see, I have certain specialty areas. I think that they should have a niche, because I think some people are coming out, and this was me in the beginning too, trying to be everything to everybody, right? Trying to get a lot of the market share, if you will. But the thing is, you should have your niche. There should be certain clients that come to you because you are the subject matter expert. You are the world-renowned person that focuses on marketing or accounting or strategy. So I think that you do need to have a niche and not be afraid of doing that, but also being very thoughtful about what your niche is.
How do you measure the success of your consulting engagements?
If we want to meet the goals, right? If the goals are met, so if the goals are met, it's successful. I mean, you can measure it also by, and sometimes knowing if it's successful takes some time because you need to do some like post analysis stuff, right? But there can be you can see some small wins. You can do some surveys and figure things out. But ultimately, you want the client to be happy, and whatever you agreed upon as an output or outcome, you want to see that come to fruition.
What motivates you to continue growing as a consultant?
Because I'm a lifelong learner. I want to be smart. I want to continue to exercise my big muscle. There's so much to learn and know. The world is changing so fast with AI and robotics and all different type of technologies. I feel like there's still going to need to be people to come in and see the things that you can only see with a third eye, and help with some of these soft skills that can't be done by computers and anything that's run by a computer and our latest and greatest technology.
So you as an educator, and then the work that you do as a consultant, how do you make those two mesh together when it comes to dealing with your clients and building business? How does that work?
Well, when you think about it, it's a nice marriage, right? Because I have to teach them. I have to be patient with them, right? So the education comes in really well. Teaching them, and that's really it, because teaching them, being patient, walking them through the process, understanding adult learning theory too, like, because I'm working with adults, different than when you work with, traditional age. And so it really helps, because being able to explain things methodically, going over them, restating them, like, that's important. And delivering things in different modalities, right? Because not everybody learns and picks up things the same way on the first time either, right? So understanding how to educate a person when you're trying to consult with a person, because part of consulting is also educating, right? And sometimes uneducating and reteaching. And so I think that the educational background and training helps with that.
So when you mention uneducating, now that's got to be an interesting concept or philosophy to use.
Right.
How would you actually break that down and determine which one of your clients may need that, and what would that look like?
So, I mean, it comes through discussion, and because they are adults and they've held on to that, whatever they think, they've held on to that, and that's probably been a part of them. And so it's difficult to address, but you can, once again, it's the rapport, it's emotional intelligence. Should I say something now? Should I say something at all? Should I, should we skip this concept? How big of it how big of it is an issue or a problem in the grand scheme of things, right? So you have to think through all those things. But it can be if you, because of the education piece, because you're good at educating and getting information to people quickly and concisely, then you can possibly get them to understand and do a paradigm shift. Maybe in that moment, if it's glaring, but also it could take a little while, and that could be okay too, particularly if you're going to be working with them for a little while, because they can once again trust you, they can see your work, and you can reiterate what you were talking about as you're trying to get them to understand how they need to unlearn, right? If I have more time with you, I can say, hey, you may not be aware of this, but this is why that no longer happens, or that's a fallacy, that's an untruth. And as we go through this process, you'll see exactly what I mean.
Wow. Okay, let's shift over to your work with your nonprofit as a community advocate. What inspired you to co-found Real People Educating Others?
Just a need, right? So we saw a need, and so we stepped in the gap, right? And so at the time, and just like everything I've been talking about, evolution and changing and pivoting. I mean, at that point, and it still exists. It was just, we were seeing a lot of young minority men in particular, killing one another, or um, participating in behaviors that they shouldn't, unbecoming behaviors. And so we wanted to do something. And so we started doing some things to help young people be a little bit more productive. And we wanted to be more sustainable in doing that. And so a nonprofit seemed like it made sense. And so that's where we came up with that idea, and where the roots of RPO started.
So, how does RPO address the challenges faced by underserved youth?
So we do well. We have three pillars really, and so it's education, mentorship, service, and extracurricular, right? And so
Mhm,
with extracurricular, where it's basketball, it's football, so we're getting them into productive things that they can do with their energy, right?
mhm,
Channeling that into something and letting them see people that look like them doing productive things, spending time with them while at the athletic camp. Clearly, mentorship is direct access and influence, right? So in that, we're teaching them how, I mean, all of it, how to look, how to speak, careers, time management, entrepreneurship, how to buy a house, what are stocks, emotional management, right? So all those things through mentorship, which is a bit clear. And then service, right? So we show them, like, when you get to a place, you need to serve other people, right? So showing them
mhm,
how to give back early, right? Even when you're struggling, showing them how to give back. And of course, education. So harping on education, explaining how education is necessary for them in season and kind of out of season, how education is not only what you learn in school, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but it's all these other things that you learn. Like I was talking about, basic finances to be a good global citizen, right? And so we do a lot of speaking in schools and correctional institutions as well, where we're getting in front of them, talking their talk, telling our stories in a lot of cases, but also giving them resources, right? And,
mhm.
and really erasing excuses.
So, can you share a success story from RPO's initiative, from an RPO initiative?
Yeah. So there's one gentleman in particular that he he had gone through all, so he was probably middle school, and he had gone through like our mentorship, participated in our service projects, been to our camp several years, right? And then he invited us to his graduation, right? And so here's one of these retrospective full circle things. Invited us to his graduation. We got to his graduation. He shared how that continuous involvement and impact, and us checking in, and him being able to see us and kind of implement. Not one to make us one to make us proud, but also emulating us, how that kind of helped develop him as a young person. Just keep and then wanting to keep in touch with us that after he graduated, and asking very good questions, which he would not have had anybody to ask those questions to as a young man graduating. So he was really giving us credit for getting to where he was and to graduation. That's why he invited us, and we still talk. And that's an opportunity for us to answer questions that he wouldn't have had anybody to ask those questions to as a young man. And so I think that's like what we want. That's a full cycle, like of continuous exposure to us and our programs, and then being able to be a productive citizen, asking like adult questions, and being able now to turn around and do it for somebody else, hopefully.
Mm. So, so then when your students they leave your program, do you have a graduation? And when they leave the program, I mean, like, is it always open for them to come back and to maybe revisit and talk with the other younger folk that's there in the program now?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have students so that participate in camp, go play college ball, come back and run the camp, both basketball, football. We'll have people that were in our virtual mentorship program, go to college, do things, come back, be in a virtual mentorship program. So it's always open. It's not a curriculum based thing. It's people who come in and do a thing and leave. A lot of people come back and volunteer with us. Like we have a huge back to school event where there's tons of vendors, fruit, food, school supplies, and so a lot of them will come and work that. And so yeah, lots of opportunities for them to come back and pour back in and kind of share their experiences and what the organization and the opportunities the organization provided did for them.
What are the four pillars of RPO and why are they important?
Yeah, so once more, the pillars of mentorship, service, extracurriculars, and education. And so they were important to us, right? And so we were being very careful about staying in our lane. And so we knew that we needed a mentor, right? Because I mean, everybody needs a mentor. So we knew mentorship needed to be a part of it. Education was in our name because when we think about education, we think, well, education is teaching somebody anything they don't know. So we weren't restricting it once again to reading, writing, and arithmetic. Like there's other things you need to know and be educated about. We're going to help you get educated about that and help you understand why that's important. But we're going to educate you about these other life things too, and why you need to govern yourself in a certain way, particularly as a minority man, but anybody, right? And so life skills and then service, we talked about that, right? Teach them how to give back, show them how to do that because we won't always be here. And so we want them to be able to carry the torch, and then extracurriculars just because we know we reach people through athletics, particularly when they're young.
So, how do you guys collaborate with other organizations to achieve RPO's mission?
Yeah, so with the service projects, a lot of organizations come out and help us, basketball teams, other organizations, Divine Nine, other civic organizations come out and serve. Small businesses, big businesses, corporations come and help. Um, Extracurricular activities like we bring in coaches from different local high schools. I think the biggest show of effort for the community is with the back to school program where we're bringing in 30, 40 vendors in the community. And so that's tons of organizations that are just there showing up to talk about their services, and then other organizations actually helping to run the event. And so that's probably the biggest show of support. And everybody gets to find out who does what, how they can collaborate, work together, and actually, pass people that are attending to each other. Like we have a table where you can find out how to get money to pay for school. You can sign up for the program, and the next table hires people once they finish the program. So there's that type of opportunity at that event.
So, what role does mentorship play in RPO's programs?
RPO mentorship program is pretty critical. We've been doing it since we have a virtual mentorship program, 5-week program. It's actually happening right now, Mondays, 8:00. And so that is our cornerstone program, right? And so it's used because that's where we get to see students, not nightly, but weekly, captive audience, and we get to talk to them about critical things that are going to be pertaining to their life, and we get to impart knowledge on them that we didn't get until we were in our 40s. And so we say early, what is it? Early access, early implementation. So the sooner you know about it, the sooner you can use it, right? So if we didn't hear about it till we're 40, we couldn't use it till we're 40 in a day. And so if they're learning at 14, how further along are they? Even if they get a little bit, right? And so that's the idea. But you get to see them, and you get to see them grow a little bit, and then we survey them at the end, and we do it out of 4 quarters. We do it 3 to 2, so they'll come back and they'll get another 5 weeks, right? So additional exposure, additional information. And so just pouring into them, giving them information so they have early access so they can have early utilization.
Okay. How do you engage with the community to promote RPO's objectives?
Right. So we clearly everybody, the back to school event I mentioned, a lot of community people are there. And so we work through those community folks. We have a listserv, we have a CRM, we're able to communicate them. But we're out and about in the community too, because we're supporting other people's stuff. Pretty well known in the community. Social media really helps. And so we just use all of those avenues to push out our mission, push out what we're doing, sharing it with people. And so that's been how we've done it, grassroots, guerrilla marketing, and then just the organic push on top of building the CRM. We can reach people directly.
So, when you actually first came to the thought of actually creating this organization, what inspired you and motivated you so much to advocate for your community to have this organization? What were you saying?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I think we want to make a difference. We want to be people of influence. We didn't want to see young, talented people squander their lives before they even realize what they were able to do with their life, right? And so we just knew that people didn't always have good role models, and we knew that some of them only had an opportunity to make one mistake, right? Whether people can make one or two mistakes and bounce back, right? The parents maybe help them. Some people can't make a mistake. You can make a mistake at 14, and that mistake changed your whole life. And so we just want to give them opportunity to have an opportunity. And so that's what I think pushed us. And we realized that could have been us had somebody not helped us, or if we didn't find something to plug into or attach ourselves to in that season of our lives.
Wow. So what challenges have you faced in your work with RPO, and how have you overcome them?
I think when you're doing a labor of love, like we don't get paid. And so I think people come and go, or people come and go, right? But it's like building a house, right? If you've seen a new construction, like when the foundation's laid, the people, they're not there when the roof goes on, right?
Mhm.
When they build the structure of the home on top of the foundation,
Mhm.
the window people aren't there. The window people don't come into the structures built. And the window people are gone before they put the ductwork in. And so that's
Yeah.
how the mindset, right? We realize that people come and they go and they don't finish tasks, and it's okay, right? Because it's not their baby, it's our baby. And we birthed it, and so we have to carry it. And so I think that's been difficult when you're trying to grow something. And the way we overcome it is just we have what I like to call quick emotional recovery. Like we might be sad for a moment, but that moment's over, right? Quick emotional recovery, get back to the business of doing the business. And just knowing that people may only be there for a short time. And so appreciating them, getting what you can out of them while they're there. Make sure you stay in the loop. And then, when it's time for them to transition for whatever reason, being okay with that and knowing that you got a little bit further.
Well, can you tell us what are the things that you are most proud of when it comes to dealing with RPO up to this moment? What are some of the things you're most proud of?
I think the back to school event is really ballooned because it started from as a table outside of a barbershop and turned into a program that services thousands of people. Everybody in the community, when you think about dignitaries, are there: mayor, superintendent, school board, vice mayor, board of supervisors. We have people coming. It's become a place where political people come to be seen and want to grab the mic. And so I think that's been something that's been really interesting to see, but it shows the growth and the power of an event like that. And so by far that's it. That's it. People don't even know we'll be out and about, and people won't even, they know it happens and they don't quite know that RPO does it. But it's known, it's big. People look forward to it. We don't get to see who comes until afterwards. We see all the pictures with the diversity. Last year we had somebody that spoke Spanish be at the check-in table because we found out we were serving a large Hispanic population. So by far the back to school event is our shining star.
So, what is it that you want people to know most about RPO and where it stands? And also, are you guys planning to do any expansions by putting up new places around the area where you are?
Yeah, we would love to expand. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, doing a partnership, donating, please reach out to me. I'm easy to find, Renaldo Randall everywhere. So you literally can Google me nowadays. But all social media outlets and RenaldoRandall.com. I'm just easy to find. Yeah, just reach out to me and let me know you heard this, heard the podcast and you want to help. And we'd love to have you join us. And, we're just doing our part, right? Many hands make light work. And we would love to expand into different cities, right? We've had something established. We just need to rip off and duplicate. And so we would love to do that. And we have some things going on in Texas as well, with RPO not as developed. But yeah, so if anybody in any state is interested, our virtual mentorship program is going on now. We're in week 2. Week 3 will be next week. It happens every Monday. So if you're interested in that, contact us. Got 3 more weeks. It's virtual. So we have people from South Carolina, New York, New Jersey, California. These are all young people on their ages, I think for like 7th grade to 12th grade. And so all these young people get on and they're sharp. So we're proud of our young people, but they're getting a lot of good knowledge. So if you have a young person, a young person, you are a young person, I think that you should opt into that. More knowledge cannot hurt. More connections cannot hurt, for sure. It's virtual, no excuses, 8 o'clock, 45 minutes of power in and out. So make your kids get on. Make your loved ones get on. Don't give them a decision with stuff like that. That's my dad. That's daddy talking right there.
So, how do you measure the impact of RPO's programs on the community?
So sometimes we measure it by like how many book bags we gave away, how much food, how many tablets, how many raffles, right? There's surveys, right? We can measure it by how many people showed up. We can measure it by how many people attended, right? So it's a lot of it's based on attendance and surveying, right? Attendance and surveying, or people just contact us and say, hey, thank you for, right? And so there's quantitative measures and there's qualitative measures, but yeah, luckily we can measure that with a lot of our stuff pretty quickly because we're giving stuff away. So when it goes, somebody was happy and they got served. Yeah.
So what are your future goals for RPO and its initiatives?
I like to see everything we do grow. I like to see the virtual mentorship program bust at the seams. I like to see it get where we have to get more creative with it, with breakout rooms, and quarterly and annually we meet up in a location and we do some fun stuff with the young people, some team building, theme parks. I like to see that really take off. We've gone to some football games, some professional football games, probably do basketball games. But I think the virtual mentorship program is a way for us to reach people that we can't reach physically. But all we need to do is get their eyes and their ears so we can get their minds and their hearts. And then we will meet them physically, right? And then we can do some more development and having some fun and sharing some memories. So that's what I think should be next, and that's kind of what I dream about and aspire for the org.
So we were talking earlier, you and I, and the one thing that I wanted to continue is it's down, of course, here in the country that we use February as Black History Month, and so I've decided that I want to make sure that I do Black History 365. And when I reached out to you, you told me that Coach Mel Jones was a person that had the most influence on you and your career. And what I would like for you to tell our audience is, how did you first meet Coach Mel James, and what was your initial impression of him?
Yeah, so Coach Mel Jones was a light, rest in peace. He recently transitioned, but just renowned coach in the Hampton Roads area. I met him Heard about him in 6th grade, met him in 7th grade because we go up to the high school to do some track stuff. And then, of course, got more acquainted with him once I stepped foot in high school. But he had a reputation that preceded him. He coached in that area for 40 plus years, touching lots of lives. Like Charles, I mentioned to you, he taught parents, kids, kids is kids. And so 3-4 generations. And I mentioned that his name was a name that was probably meant, not probably, his name was a name that was mentioned in our community, which is in the small community, more than any other person. His name. President, more than president, famous person, anybody you can think of, his name was mentioned more. And he had not only impact, but he had influence. And you can have one without the other, and he had both. Just a phenomenal man. I got to share some sentiments about him at his celebration of life. And he's one of those people where, so many people talk at one of those type of engagements, and you kind of hear the same thing and you run out of things to say. But he's one of those people, because he's touched so many people, both through impact and influence, that you can just keep talking about him, right? So those people that did not receive a like direct impact from him, they benefited from his influence, right? Mm-hmm. He'd walk into the comments of our high school and people would just straighten up, right? Mm-hmm. It was like he's float through, and the kids would just move, right? Because that's an influence. They knew they needed to be. You either straighten up or you got out, right? And that's
he had presence.
He had presence, right? And people benefited from just being in his proximity. And then he touched people directly, right? He did several things for me as a young man I'm appreciative of, including calling my undergraduate institution to get me in, right? So he's a guy that walked up the stairs with me when I went to join the church as an adult after graduating, and so people that hear this that know him, or people also probably know a person like him. And I asked Charles, I said, when he asked me the question, I said, does it have to be somebody famous? Because Coach Mel Jones is the first person that came to my mind. And I asked Charles, does it have to be somebody famous? And I knew he was going to say no, but I need to hear from him. He said no, Coach Mel Jones. And so viewers, when you see this, when you think about the person that impacted you the most, it doesn't have to always be somebody famous. It can be your mom, it can be your dad. But Coach Jones, because he didn't have to do what he did. My mom and dad signed up for it, right? Mm-hmm. Coach Jones didn't have to do what he did. And he sacrificed time from his daughter to do it. And he spent his whole life doing it. And he was so talented, he could have did something else, making a lot of money. But he stayed true to what God called him to do. And he stayed and he blessed so many young people, self included. And that's why I do what I do, because the dash between the birth year and the death year, the dash is what matters. And so all your money, if you make all the money in the world and you don't help anybody, nobody's really going to remember you. Like, you don't, your impact is money, right? But when your impact is inside of people,
yes,
it's inside of the people that they deal with and they talk to. And if you're really impactful, they'll quote you. They'll say where it came from. Not only will they say it and know where it came from, and it may happen like people probably do it now subconsciously, but if you're really good, they'll say where it came from. And so we did 2 things for him, and I'll stop talking about it. You can tell I'm passionate about this guy. We got a proclamation for him, not RPO, got a proclamation written up for him by the city, and they declared December 4th Coach Mel Jones Day in the city. And then we have a award ceremony celebrating success, and we name that in honor of him as well, because we want his name to continue to be heard as his impact and influence considers be in the world.
So what lessons have you learned from Coach Mel Jones that have influenced your career?
Wow. Just to show up with presence, right? He was very clean. He was very well put together. And so like first impression type things. Mm-hmm. And Coach Jones would always have these sayings, these motivational sayings, right? It's a good day to have a good day, right? When you wake up saying that. And so just the positive energy, and you could tell he was talking with wisdom. And he was witty. And so I won't say inherited, I borrowed them. I stole them, right? Because I had the same wittiness, I had the same confidence, but calm, right? And the wisdom, because I went through some things, but he went through a lot of things, right? And so just his ability to take what he's been through, always take the high road, have perspective, be consistent, right? All those generations of people that he taught, parents and kids and grandkids, he was always consistent. You didn't get a 2025 Coach Jones and a 1970 Coach Jones. They weren't different. It was the same, classic. Some things don't need to be changed, right? And so I also got that from him too. Just because the world is changing doesn't mean everything needs to change, right? And so those type of things, man.
So how has Coach Mill Jones inspired your work with RPO?
You know what? Since he's left this earth, I started to think about that more. He's probably the reason we do a lot of the stuff we do. Like, you know, our parents really weren't great parents, but they really weren't serving the community in the way we're doing. But Coach Jones was. And so when you think about where did we get this model from, right? Or what the gap we're trying to, because Coach Jones also filled this type of gap. And so when you think about what gap we're trying to fill, and when you think about the service that we're providing, the things he did. And so maybe without knowing it, he's the person that we got it from. And so we've had that discussion recently. So I would say a good bit of it, what he put in us, caused us to want to step in the gap and make a difference like he made a difference in our lives and so many others.
So what role does Black history play in your personal and professional life?
I am Black History Today, right? Okay. I mean, that's it, man. I strive to be Black History Today. I mean, like you say, Black History 365, right? I realize that we Black people have had major impacts on modern day America, so much more than probably is known. And so where I celebrate in February with everybody else, I mean, I'm trying to Black History Today, which is being like Coach Jones, right? Showing up in class and style with presence so that other people that look like me can see that and want to emulate, right? And help them. And that's a major part, right? You practice like you play, you feel good, you look good, you feel good, right? So some of those things, just those things open up doors for you, right? And help you with their confidence. And so I feel like that's important, building the next generation. I mean, that's Black history, that's Black excellence today and every day.
Especially when you become Dr. Reneldo Randall, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That'll be helpful. That'll be helpful. Some people need to hear that. But nothing's gonna change about me but a couple more initials. But some people need to see and hear it. I'm glad to oblige here at the end of that journey.
So, how has Coach Mill Jones's legacy shaped your understanding of leadership and community advocacy?
Wow, leadership. Sometimes you gotta make an unpopular decision. That's the thing people don't like about leadership. I try not to make unpopular decisions because I try to have such great relationships and don't have to. Coach Jones did too, but at the same time, he's gonna make the unpopular decision. He's gonna say the hard thing if he needs to, right? And so definitely that's something that I inherited from Coach. And what was the second part?
Your understanding of leadership and community advocacy.
Right. So what I just mentioned was the leadership. Like, you're gonna have to make a hard decision. Everybody's not gonna be happy, but are you a leader or you're not? Right. You're either gonna stand on it or you're not, and that's also like cornerstone leadership, man. Like 101. Community work, like I mentioned, right? Like recently, we've discovered that how much of that has come from Coach Jones. Like he really worked in the community. He really stepped out of his household. He really went the extra mile. And so that's what we're doing. And without knowing it, he is probably the only place outside of what we may have had inside of us, he's where we saw that.
Wow. You
Yeah.
know, that I think that's more than what you want to call presence. I mean, this is a person that was actually present. So in
Right.
being present and having that impact, to have an everlasting impact like that, that's more than any young man or young lady can ever want in their lives, because there's always a person like that in the community that helps to make that difference. If it's shaping and forming all these kids that are considered his kids, you know, because you're in that community, that means a whole lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, can you share a specific moment when Coach Mel Jones' guidance made a significant impact on you?
So coach, man, so I was a teen father, and so what coach did for me is when he found out that I had a child on the way, he came to my class and he came and got me. And he walked around and he talked to me. I don't remember exactly what he said. It didn't matter. It's the fact that he did and how he made me feel. And so I think that was really impactful because he knew that I was confused, probably scared. And so he did that for me. And so I really respected him for that.
Mhm. How do you honor Coach Mel Jones's influence in your daily work?
I think about things he would do. I do things like, as you said, what would Jesus do bracelets? I
Right.
have what would coach do? Right?
Okay.
What would coach do bracelets? So that's one of the things I do. I think about what coach, and when I'm with my friends, we talk about coaching. We do things coach would do, and so it's in all of us, right? And we laugh and joke about it when we're together.
Mm. So, what advice would you give to others who want to follow in Coach Mel Jones's footsteps?
Um, Find a good mentor. Find a good mentor. Be prideful about yourself, the way you look, the way you think, who you hang around. Be a leader and not a follower, right? I
Mhm.
think so. I think those are some critical things Coach kind of stood on. There's a lot, but I'm gonna give you those because I think that's the things that stick out the most. I think that's some stuff that people can like digest.
So, how do you incorporate the values and principles of Black history into your work? Your work with RPO.
So the principles of Black history. I mean, we're a Black operated nonprofit, right? And so we're cognizant of that. And so I don't know if the principles are there for Black like history, but certainly Black excellence, right?
Mhm.
And so we do things and try to stay above reproach. And so I think that's what we do, right? We try to be a good example for one another, for our race, for our organization, right? And so we're purposely trying to be role models,
Mhm.
right? Because that's what people are looking at us like role models, and they have as athletes, and so as young athletes, and so um, we're showing people how they should act, move, and serve and lead.
So, what message would you like to share about the importance of mentors like Coach Mel Jones in shaping future leaders?
I think people like Coach Jones and the person I aspire to be can really change the world one, two persons at a time, right? By showing people how to be ethical, upright citizens in a community, a global community. And so
Mhm.
Coach Jones, as mentioned, was just a shining star in in this world. And so, I mean, I'm just trying to such a crazy influence, man. Yeah,
Mhm.
so everybody should find a mentor. Everybody should aspire to be a mentor. I think mentorship really can change the world.
So, in closing, what are some of the things you'd like to leave with our audience about your abilities? You know, from being a consultant, being an educator, to your community advocacy, to get in life, to improve their lives, to be inspired, some of the things they can do, how they can reach out to you, connect with you, find you on social media. What are those things would you like to leave with our audience tonight?
So everybody can find me. Google me, Renaldo Randall. I mentioned that, and you can find all of my endeavors there. I think that I think I want everybody to understand that everybody needs a definition of success. So success to me is progressive achievement of worthwhile goals, right? Progressive achievement of worthwhile goals. And so if you want to attach yourself to something bigger than you, if you're interested in serving the community, we invite you to join and partner with RPO. If you're interested in getting leadership training, or you need coaching, or you want someone to come speak to your staff, your club, your organization, I'm open to that through my Bridge Builder and Associates platform, which is my leadership. And if you're interested in having somebody invest in your organization, I'm also a minority investor as well. So you can find me at RenaldoRandall.com. RPO is RPEOVA.org is where you can find that organization. Friends in Biz is friendsinbiz.com. And those are pretty much the social media and the website outlets. But yeah, if you heard something that you feel like is interesting to you and you want to reach out, please do. Let's find a way to work together, and let's find a way to play together and call it work.
Well, I want to thank you for blessing us with some of your time, because I know you're very, very busy. And also, I want to appreciate you for being the man that you are, for having the ability to be both the professional as well as the family man that you are, and setting the examples that we want our young people to follow. You guys have seen a perfect example of what it is to strive to be the best that you could possibly be, from Mr. Reneldo Randall. You know, these are the examples that we want to set, and we want people that's watching the show to understand that when we want to do and we strive to do the things that we know we can do, we can actually reach those goals. The professionals that come on this show, such as Mr. Randall, are the people that are here to show you that example, because being it is living it is worth doing, is how you get this result of being successful. And success can be whatever we want to call it. It doesn't have to be where you're on this big platitude of, oh, I'm just famous and I'm a star. You're a star regardless of the case. The thing is, you have to know who you are and build from within, because if you build from within, you get a whole lot to expand from. So let's work on building our communities, and let's do some of the things that Mr. Randall is doing with RPO. Let's learn about setting up these 501c3s to help build our communities, keep them together, keep them striving, but also to make sure that we can control those environments and make them be what we want them to be, not what other people want them to be. I want to thank you again, Mr. Randall. And we definitely would love to have you back on the show, because this was really, really a wonderful situation in which you were able to give us a lot of insights as to what community growth and how you work within the community to make it be about as best as what you can make it be. And like I said, we definitely want to have you back. For those that are watching on the YouTube channel, I am going to ask you all that if you have not, please do us the favor of going to the channel and subscribing, hitting the notifications button. So every time we have a live show, you will be able to see that show live, or you can go back and watch all of the pre-recorded shows and enjoy them as much as you'd like. I want you guys to have a wonderful weekend. We will see you guys next week with the other set of great shows. And we will see you guys then. You all have a great night and a great weekend.